I am joined today by Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hello, Andy. Nice to meet you.
Now, we are talking a little bit about you, your life, your faith, and what you do in your day job. So let's just start there and we'll work backwards from it. But what is it you do? What Open Cloud is the company, business, organization? Just tell us a bit more about that.
Yes. Open Cloud actually came from a time of prayer way back in 2008. I was praying and I felt this word open cloud just sort of hit my heart, and I kind of pursued God for a long time, perhaps too long, on sort of what that actually meant. And I believed it was something in the creative space, but I'd been working in IT for ages. And I thought, well, I'll step out and create a company. And I thought, like with many people who sort of start off, is that they'll get the balance of working full time and then they'll grow the business and then they'll just step across. That never really works because there's always too much on and you can never get into that position. And it's a step of faith out that you've got to make to sort of grow the business in the end. It took almost 10 years of God keeping nudging me, saying, "You've got to do it, you've got to do it, you've got to do it." Went on all kinds of journeys, and I started a media company around 2016, 2017. And we started off, and then we connected it with IT, and now we're a group. We call ourselves a group because we have a media division and we have an IT division, and we provide sort of IT services. But the heart of all of that is to be a kingdom business and to be a light in the marketplace, to be something different. And that's always a fun kind of adventure, fun discussion when you're talking about how can we be different in business, to be disciples, to be Christians. What does that mean? How does that look? How can we make sure people can hear the gospel through what we do?
I guess when you've got a USP in business, your unique selling point, which everybody drums into, why would I buy from you and not the people over there? So you're trying to get that bit in your head, which does matter because we don't need everybody to sell shoes. Someone's going to come along. I just do pointy shoes or heeled shoes, and they have a niche, and actually it can work very well. Obviously, IT media, there's lots of people around, and when you mix in the Christianity part, the USP of being a Christian is that we should stand out. So how do you stand out as a Christian when you're supposed to be standing out as a business and then blending those two standings out? How do you manage that without making it so much of a standing out it's now neutral?
Well, again, that was a bit of a journey for us. When you're looking at strategy, when you're looking at vision for the company, you can spend a lot of time on that, and we did. We spent a lot of time in prayer, in sort of reading God's word, and the thing which came out was love. Like Jesus says, out of all these things, if love your neighbors, like love God and then love your neighbor, it's love is the center. So we really are sort of really homed in on, like, love has got to be the core part to this business. I've never seen a vision document from any other business which says love is the first place that we start from. There might be a few out there, but I've never sort of seen them. And but the second that we discovered and felt that love was at the core, then everything else kind of fell out from that. You get things that you'll see in other business documents like integrity or those types of wording to sort of help people. But from a heart of love, when we say to our team, when you're with a client, just just love them like they're your neighbor, and spend a little bit more time with them, try and solve their problems, walk them through, go that extra mile with them. And all of a sudden they start asking questions like, why are you doing this? And straight away doors open is, well, we're Christians, and uh, fantastic conversations can come just from going out of your way in love, and opens like that. So that's really our unique selling point. Um, we don't really advertise much. It's word of mouth because people say these guys sort of care for our business as if it were their own and love the individuals, and they're great guys, hopefully.
And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? When we're trying to stand out, we can tie ourselves in knots thinking, how can we be the most unique of all the
Yes.
uniqueness? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, but when you start from a scriptural point of view and you've got your USP in business and you've got your USP as a Christian, we're supposed to be salt in the world. It's easy, I think. I've read, let's just say that I went for full-time ministry jobs and I've read lots of 3-point plans about every single church, and I got really bored because they're all the same, and they actually are, because I think some of them, it's so rooted in being clever, it's not rooted in being Christ-like. And
Yeah.
what I enjoyed about what you were just saying about your approach, and the reason why you don't need to advertise, exactly because we don't need to, because actually God comes through. And on top of the business and the Christian bit, then there's the obedience bit, which is you as an individual. Well, God has asked us to do this.
Yeah. And I will be honest, we are not the best IT geniuses in the world. We're not the best media geniuses in the world. And I'm okay with that, but we will do our best and we will try our best in every circumstance. But just the fact that we're willing to spend time, especially with people who have problems that they're almost embarrassed to say about, like switching on a laptop. We've had people who've come to us, I can't even switch the laptop on because they've hidden the power button somewhere. But we make ourselves approachable, and they're so thankful over that, compared to if a server is down and you manage to get a server back up, they go, oh yeah, thanks for doing that. That's your job. But actually, someone's actual need, they're too embarrassed to ask anyone else about getting that sorted. They're like, thank you ever so much for doing that.
I think sometimes though we like those big, bold, dramatic, extreme scenarios of
Yes.
abseiling into the server room and skidding along and hitting the power button at the right moment. But actually, how do I turn my laptop on? I can't find my Outlook. It's gone. Where's it gone?
Yep.
Because Windows has done an update and now everything that I had has changed. We had this recently. We had crackling on the radio. No reason whatsoever. We kind of know what we're doing. Why? What happened? Well, there's a thing that the browser wants, and there's a thing that we've told Microsoft to do. Microsoft updated and said, nah, I'm going to change all of the settings on your computer for you, even though you said don't change the settings. But this happens, and then you can get into a panic. Now, we have an ability to be able to kind of problem solve.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that. And it's
Mm,
not even that simple. Sometimes it's just beyond our technical ability. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. And you don't know what you don't know.
yeah. And the other funny, not funny thing, but it always makes me giggle a bit in terms of realizing that God is above physics and everything else. That even electronics, God can sort out just with a bit of prayer. The amount of times where we can walk into a room and they say, "Oh, it's just started to work." And the fact that I've been praying all the way over, going, "Lord, I don't know where to start with this one. Can you help me with this?" And you walk in and it's fixed. And it's happened too many times for it to be a coincidence. It is literally just the power of God going, "Yeah, I'm ahead of you. I'll get this sorted." And it's just it breaks my heart every time, really, knowing that we've got a God who cares for us that much.
I love that phrase, which is where I want to sort of spin this a bit more to your life. But it's happened so many times, it's beyond coincidence.
Yes.
It's a phrasing that I've used myself, is that, yes, you can say, well, X plus Y plus Z equals coincidence, chance, just a bit of luck. But as Christians, actually, in my own life, it got to a point when you can't then excuse away the amazing by random luck and chance. You have to say, there is something beyond this.
Yes.
It's not just a coincidence anymore, because, well, I haven't got three. Now I've got 3,000 in a row. And at what point do you go from coincident luck and chance to this is an answer to prayer?
Yes.
So let's go backwards a bit in time for you then. What's your story of faith growing up that you can now walk into a server room in prayer and fix it because of the power of prayer? Let's go back. Where did that all begin?
Well, I was very blessed, really, to be born into a Christian family, and I attended church from a very young age. And I remember my earliest memories of being young, praying, and I did have that childlike faith. I believed that when I prayed, things would happen. I remember a silly little story. We used to take the bus to uh, first school, and we used to have a bus driver who used to shout at people to sit down and everything. And I remember as a young lad that used to frighten me, and I'd cry. I remember my mum said, "Just pray about it," and I remember praying about it, and I had this peace. and even if he would shout, I would still be at peace. So it completely threw out fear in my life in that sense as a really young boy. And that's pretty much been kind of the story of my life, that I have gone to God in prayer. I've been through all kinds of different situations. We've been in sort of massive debt from stupid decisions, but God's kind of we were lacking in finance. I was without a job for a stage, and God kept showing up on with finances. God kept providing. I remember heading over. We had just had my son was born. I was walking over to the supermarket, not having any money in our account, but knowing that I needed to buy nappies. And there was this cutway I was walking through, and there was a £20 note on the floor. I didn't know how I was going to pay as I left, but I just walked in faith. It's like, Lord, we need to do this. We need some provisions. I'm just kind of trusting you, and if that means wandering around the shop for hours until something happens, so be it. But on the way, there was a £20 note, no one in sight, no one around at all, and that was just one example of many. Again, there's too many of those to sort of be a coincidence. When I was younger, I was diagnosed with a condition, and on a health side, I believed in healing, but it was about sort of 15 to 17 years of actual going through this condition, and God miraculously just sort of healed me. And whether we go into that story or not, I don't know. But again, God's there providing on the health side. So again, every avenue of my life, I've been usually it's down to my own stupid decisions in the first place. I've started in my younger years making mistakes. But God's just patiently kind of been working on me. Right, just trust me with this. Just trust me with this. We'll get through it. Okay, something else has come up. Okay, trust me with this. Trust me with this. And working through it. And that's really how my faith has kind of developed, and I'm here.
Well, I mean, let's look into that. So 15, 16 years of being ill. I understand some elements of that. I've had a heart condition now for 4 years, constantly crying out to God, can you not fix this, please? You've made me, you designed me, you created the heavens and the earth. Could you not fix this bit here? Because it's misfiring, effectively. Could you stop it misfiring? You're the mechanic of mechanics, you know.
Yes.
And we can pray. And I know that one day I'll be healed because I'm going to die and be good. I'd like the healing now, but hey, we'll get there. But it also means I have to trust more in God. It forces me to slow down and take things that I wouldn't normally do, that sort of pace or that rhythm, which is a good thing. And I'm not saying this is good, because you shouldn't rejoice in pain and suffering. That's not what that scripture means. But it does mean that despite that, you can still rejoice and worship God. Your life very much sounds like you were just surrounded with peace, prayer, a really lovely, sounds like your mum was really like helping you to focus on God. But what happened with that 15, 16-year journey?
It was a deepening of faith, really, through this time. I used to basically be curled up on the floor in pain. It was a stomach issue or digestion system, and it was heavily bleeding, and it felt like stabbing. And I would go completely white and literally be curled up on the floor. But there was no point where I questioned God, but kind of knew just to sort of keep trusting in Him. And it's like where Paul says it would be better in heaven, but if I'm not in heaven, then you've got something for me. You've got something to do for me. Yeah, so I had sort of stomach issues, and it was bleeding, and it felt like a stabbing pain in that. So I really kind of struggled, but I just had this piece of just sort of knowing that God was there, knowing that yeah, if I wasn't in heaven, then God still had a purpose for me. So I just continued on going. It was as I was sort of reading more and understanding and developing my relationship with God more and understanding the scriptures more, I just had more and more confidence. And there literally just was one day where God said, "You're healed."
Hmm.
And I was on all kinds of various medication and things like that, and it was quite uh, yeah, very strong medication, and it was causing all kinds of side effects as well. And I made the decision just to stop. Not the best idea. I am married to a nurse, and I got told off a lot for doing that because this isn't the type of medication you just stop. But
Mhm.
I did it. Um, I just had that complete confidence in God in this occasion. I'm not recommending that for everyone, but in this instance, that in my mind just felt the right thing. And I had a doctor's appointment, and it was the lovely doctor's appointment which involves a camera where cameras shouldn't be. And I was all ready to provide a gospel message. I was expecting them to say, "Oh, everything's all healed. How's that?" And I had this message: "I'm a Christian. It's because of Jesus." Everything else like that. And I remember being in the surgery. You're pretty much awake, and you're looking at the screen. And on the screen, I see all this bleeding and everything still. And at that very moment in time, I said to God, "God, you said I was healed." And I was almost taken to a point where I'm on this sort of cliff edge. And he said, "You can either look to the world and look down and see what's happening in the world, or you can look up and believe in my word, and I'll make sure everything falls into place." I said, "Well, I believe in your word." And the second that happened, I I've been healed. I've literally had nothing, no bleeding from that point. And he just emphasized, like, the physical must come into alignment with the spiritual. The physical must come into alignment with my word. So when I say something, the physical has to obey it. And that was part of the journey. And this is now I'm going into 10 years of symptom free, no issues, and everything else like that. And it's all down to God.
I can easily imagine your wife would have been not happy, not because I've met her, but I can understand why a nurse would be saying, "No, no, 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 that's
Yes.
not how this works." But
If we had a doghouse, I would have been in there for a period of time.
uh, but of course, although this isn't how this works, this is not how this works. But that's where God is bigger than the physical.
Yes. And God took me on a journey with that. I just sort of started speaking at our church that we go to, and God was taking through like a series in me that I was able to sort of give to the church. And it was all about redefining our reality. Our reality is so made up in the worldly sense of our five senses, but it's far more than that. When you've got a God who, as we've said, is in charge of physics, in charge of chemistry, in charge of everything, he can do whatever he likes. He's God. He can just say and speak, and things happen.
Um, you've got that experience. You talked about how it deepened your faith. How did you find your faith deepen while in a ball on the floor in agony, white, bleeding? I mean, I'm guessing that's going to be basically iron deficiency at that point. So, How did you find your faith develop in spite of, or perhaps because of, the physical symptoms?
Well, you go through it. It's only natural to kind of go through questioning, and I just spent a lot of my time sort of going, "God, what's the reason for this?" I kind of said, "Well, we know that in life these things happen, but if this is something I've got to journey through, I believe you can heal. But if it's something I've got to journey through, I still want to learn from you. I want to deepen my relationship with you." And that was kind of all part of it. I, like yourself, is I know that when I'm in heaven, I'll have a brand new body, and everything will be healed there. So my faith is in the outcome. We're so very quick to think of our life as everything, but our life is minuscule compared to the eternity that we'll be spending with him. So that's what kind of kept me going. And ev just whenever I was low, I just opened up my Bible, and the first thing I'd read would just be those few sentences that, like, almost God is speaking directly into my life and keeping encouraging me. In terms of making you feel humble, I definitely felt humble having all these investigations and procedures and things like that. One time I had so many university students around in the theatre. Yeah, I didn't have any, there wasn't any part of me left that needed to be more humble.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I say funny, not ha ha, but it's called a theatre because it would have been a place that people would come to watch what was going on in order to learn. And we forget operating theatre. I mean, it's a room. I've been in an operating theatre with a very low ceiling, not a theatre in any kind of context whatsoever. But the original ones were, it was where you would go to
Yeah.
learn. But of course, you're learning at someone's expense, and the poor soul on the trolley at the bottom is the one that, is the one that, yeah, okay, off you go.
Yes, yeah. So that was a fun time, and again, God just kept showing up, and recent sort of in more recent years, sort of the joys of the start of this decade with COVID. Um, Again, the company was quite young when it started, and the announcement was made in COVID, and my whole diary just cleared. Everyone cancelled. And I thought I could either panic and start getting fearful, or I'm going to trust in God. And seeing that God gave me this, He's not have built this up for it just to have disappear in sort of 24 hours sort of thing. So I just prayed. I said, Lord, this is your company. What do you want me to do? And I believe it was just because of that faith walk that then within 48 hours, my diary had filled right back up again. I could have gone into sheer panic mode and then allowed worry to come in, and I don't think I would have had the same outcome. But yeah, God just keeps showing up.
Cool. I think it is that thing of you have to make a choice when it's difficult and it's tough. You either think, well, why God have you abandoned me? Which, hey, look at the Psalms, King David. God, you're a failure. You've destroyed this. You've failed. You've ruined. What are you doing? And then as you go through the Psalm, David then begins to see that God hasn't failed and he
Mm,
isn't stupid and he
yes.
hasn't let him down. But our initial perception is always going to be, where were you? I prayed. It didn't happen. But that, of course, is us expecting to God to work to our time frame, our needs. And one of the most powerful things I think I've ever heard in my life is God decided and he chooses daily to be restricted by time and space so that he can have a relationship with us. That's one of those things that somebody said, and they said, go and think about it. I've never stopped thinking about it for the last 10 years because it's true. Not that God is restricted by time and space because he's God, but he chooses to be allowed to have the restrictions of time and space placed upon him in order to have a relationship with us. And it sounds like that's exactly what he did with you when you were struggling with pain.
Yeah, yeah. For me, I love in Job sort of where it says, Job, where were you when I know flung stars into space and everything else. It puts it into perspective that as we're told, God's ways are not our ways. God's thoughts are not our thoughts. And when you just kind of realize that He has got a plan, He holds everything in his hands, that we can have that confidence in Him.
Mm. Amen to that. So that's you growing up till about 10 years ago. You started Open Cloud. You've got the issues of COVID, which, I mean, it started some businesses, it finished some businesses. It's fascinating how I've spoken to folk who halfway through COVID thinking, oh, I'll start this thing that God's called me to. And you're thinking, that can't work. And yet it does.
Yes.
Why does it work? Well, partly obedience. You could argue bit of luck, bit of coincidence, bit of a chance. But like you say, eventually you're thinking there's so many of these coincidental luck and chance stuff. This has got to be bigger. And then you know that the reason is it's God's involved in your
Yes.
life.
Yeah.
Um, Open Cloud today, just talk us through that because that's the thing that you started. What do you actually do? I mean, you've talked about servers and saying on laptops, possibly a bit more than that goes on. So you've got these two divisions. What do you actually do?
Well, the there is a larger end game, I suppose, or a thing at play, and that is trying to walk alongside other Christian businesses and create a network of other Christian business owners and those who are in work as Christians, and encouraging them with being a Christian in the workplace. So many people that we've spoken to, so many Christians, it's funny. It blows their mind that the thought that they could be a Christian in the workplace and not just on a Sunday. And the second that you sort of start talking about that, and you start talking about, well, have you seen any issues with, say, have you got has a colleague got a problem, or is there's something that you can help with, that as a Christian you could deliver God's light into that situation, and they're like, oh, I didn't think of that, and then it's almost like a penny drop moment. So just those little facts that we're encouraging people to be that army of God in the workplace is really encouraging for us, but also sort of walking alongside and kind of helping with business sense from looking at things in a different way. For example, like budgeting. Budgeting as a business is completely different, or slightly different, when you're a Christian trying to budget for business. Because if you have a vision, if you've got God who said, no, I want you to do this, then your budgets are going to be completely different. Finances are going to be less of, well, we can't do this because we haven't got that amount of money, to, well, God said, so we'll either try and find the money, or God's just going to provide. Or we don't do this because we really feel that God's doing that, and that's really important. So that's a sideline really to our business. So we feel that we can only help on that side because of the journey that we're going through on our own businesses and our own core business. So in terms of like the IT and the media, we work with a lot of churches, we work with a lot of Christian organizations, but we also work with a lot of secular organizations as well. And our heart really is that we'll get to a point where we're helping churches out to provide, say, corporate level media and IT, but not at those prices, because we can afford to sort of help them out as well. So we're kind of working with that kingdom principles.
So what's an average week for you? Is it lots of driving to churches? Have you got your arms buried in a bunch of cables? I mean, what's an average week?
We are still a small company. There's only a handful of us. So I have to dig into helping that person find the power button on their laptop, to doing the accounts, to all sorts. And when you're starting off in a business, everyone does wear multiple hats. So even the team have to do multiple different tasks, which I kind of like, and probably I wouldn't like to step out of, because I like to get involved in all kinds of different things, but sometimes I've got to learn how to not get involved. But an average week can really vary. Some Monday mornings you can have the phones lighting up with support calls, to other days which aren't. But what I will say is every Monday we all come together as a team, and we have our prayer time and just commit the whole week to God. And that is probably very important for us.
But that's going to set the tone for everything that you do. The cadence, which is a word, not I've recently learned it, I've recently heard it. I love the principle of cadence. On a bicycle, if you're just banging your legs down, it's going to be tiring. So once you get the flow, everything's easier. But effectively, what you're doing on a Monday morning is saying, okay, whatever's going on, this is the rhythm that we want to work at.
Yes. Yeah, and it does. It just as the examples in the rest of my life, prayer changes everything. And why wouldn't you want God changing your business to what he wants it to be?
Amen to that. If people are listening and thinking, well, that's all very well for you, you don't understand my situation because I've got a different business. Easy, because you're working with churches, right? So of course you can be a Christian there. It makes it easier everywhere. How would you help somebody who's got that? And let's face it, we've all got that in some context. How would you help them to realize that, you know what, you can still be Christ-like in your business, selling, I don't know, working in a newsagent or supplying petrol at a petrol station? There's always something. But how could you help them to see in their own industry or sector how they can bring in Christ? How would you encourage them?
I'd probably start off by just saying that churches are probably the hardest of places. And I mean that in love. And that's because the church is there for everyone. from all kinds of walks of life. So when you're dealing with churches, you are literally dealing with a full range of spectrum of what that could involve, and sort of what they're into. So that can be trickier actually than when you go into a company. And in a company, they're all there for a reason, and they're all there with one task. That's whatever that company does, and they're all kind of aligned in that. When it comes to churches, they're all at different stages of life. They're at different walks of life with God, and again, you've got a completely different spectrum. When it comes to sort of talking about business, if you're in business, there are so many situations and so many businesses where you probably have a policy, or there is some kind of prevention from you discussing and being fully open about your Christianity. Generally, sort of medical, the in schools, you can't always talk about that, but that doesn't stop you from showing love. And it doesn't stop you from someone asking you a question and you being honest with your answer. So the first thing I would say is go in with the heart to be like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Let me see the opportunities. By saying that, you've then got to make sure that you're giving yourself space to allow God to change your day. Don't be so rigid in your day that if you see something happening, or you don't see something happen, you don't miss your opportunities to be able to help someone out, or be Christ in the workplace. That just really starts off a snowball. And all of a sudden you find, after you've been doing this for a couple of weeks, that actually you find out that there are so many opportunities around that you're like, well, which one do I do first, sort of thing. God, show me which one of these opportunities you want me to impact first. And you just see God changing your day. And you actually see God giving you a fire, probably for your job that you've never had before, just because you're doing God's work in that workplace environment. And it's a beautiful thing. And I've seen it, I've walked it, and I've walked with a lot of people through that as well.
Having worked for churches, I can understand that mentality of, churches are not the easiest place to be a Christian sometimes, because even down to which translation of the Bible you use, that's not something that a non-Christian workforce is ever going to have an issue with. If you have to find a Bible for a very random reason, no one's going to care. But in the church, even pulling out the wrong version of a Bible could be a minefield of minefields. So I can understand that. But the other thing that you said, which in my own mind I was sort of starting to develop, is, I don't know, you work for a bank and you're working behind the I don't know, you're on the desk. So you were just taking money, taking checks. That's your job. You're a specialist in doing that. If you're working in engineering and you're working on a lathe, you know how to make your lathe work. You're going to be oiling it, and that's your focus. In a church, the person in the office is probably also cleaning the toilets, mowing the lawn. They're also looking after the gutters, the roof, the insurance, the fire extinguishers. And all of a sudden, you guys are coming in and you've got somebody who is so broadly skilled, they're probably going to struggle to do any more things, which is probably the person that's saying, I can't find the laptop switch, because you know what? They're actually a lawnmower technician. So why would we expect them to? Yet in a church, you expect that sometimes, but also in a church, you get people who are completely randomly in a position because God's put them there, who have no concept but have a heart and a calling. And God said, I want them to do this. I'm an ex-trucker running a radio station. Compute that one, but that means I don't know how to do certain things, but God wanted me to be here to do that.
Yes. Yeah, it goes back to just that prayer of like, Lord, what do you want me to do? If you're in it, then I know I'll be able to do it.
Amen to that, including chasing down audio crackle, which shouldn't be there. Not our fault for once. We have occasionally accidentally done it, but this one was nice. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? We're trying to do the best we can do. And we have partial information, and we're trying to do that with the partial information in a situation which we partially understand. And you've got all these partials sort of lining up. But actually, when you allow God to be the one that's putting all those partial parts together, you then get a full picture.
Yes.
But that means trusting him, which is what you evidently have done.
Yeah. That it's not an easy walk. Even now, we can have issues without delving into politics. Things change in the our laws and employment laws and costs and taxes, and you're still in situations where you wake up one day and you think, I'm just going to have to trust in you, Lord. It still happens. We're not, like I say, we're not some massive organization um, where we have any money to give. It often goes back into supporting Christian things. We do believe, obviously, is in tithing and gifting, because at the end of the day, we're all part of the kingdom of God, and that's. It says, "Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven," and we're just trying to make sure that we're doing God's will on earth.
Dan, thank you. Open Cloud, if people want to reach out and think, hey, that sounds interesting, I'd like to speak to those guys, how do they do that?
Our website is opencloud.group, but we also do a podcast for this reason, which is available on YouTube. But we're around.
Dan, opencloud.group. Thank you. It's been a pleasure just finding about some of your journey, especially the pain as a child, working through that and getting to the end of that, which I think for a lot of people would be saying, well, you don't know me. I've had this for 3 years. Well, 15, 17 years. And you came through it and you're still smiling, which says a lot. Dan, thank you.
Thank you ever so much, Andy. You have a great day.
Did you know that at Pure 24/7 Radio, we also offer advertising? Advertising really does work. Let's face it, you're listening to this. Want to know more? Well, just go to pure247radio.org, pure247radio.org/advertising, and you can get everything you want and more there.